Hello everybody, this is Connor, BoatsDon'tSink, here with another week of Weekly Weiss for September 2nd, 2022. Once again, apologies for missing the last week. We've been really busy and admittedly, the news has been somewhat lacking, though last week we had BRO results, so sorry for not covering those then. But, good news, we've got up to today. So we're going to be talking about the Bushiroad Rumble Online 2022 results, as well as the Bushiroad Championship Series 2022 Houston results. The first regional has happened. Other than that, again, not much has happened. We're still getting Attack on Titan final season spoilers for the English original release. I don't have any in this video, but if you have not been keeping up with them, go check out the official website. They recently revealed all 9 of the Titan rares, as well as a bunch of other Titan cards, and they've still been doing new card reveals every day on Twitter. So go check those out if you're interested in the new Attack on Titan final season reveals. Set is looking interesting, to say the least. I'm still not a fan of the seeming lack of flavor everywhere and generic card profiles, but set seems at least competently strong. So we'll see how that turns out in a couple weeks when it releases. But for now, we want to talk about the BRO2022 results. There were 3 tournaments. One for the AO, Asia and Oceania region, one for the European region, and one for the North America and Latin America region. Starting with the AO top 8, we have lots of Mushoku Tensei. 8 standby Mushoku Tensei in first, third, and a top 8 position, with the rest of the decks actually just being one-ofs. Most of these decks are decks that we saw in the spring season doing well. Hololive, Bang Dream, Tensura, all just stuff that's been doing well previously. Danmachi having just recently released, but expected as a strong contender, due to having good matchups against standby decks, because it hits very high offensive powers from level 1 throughout the rest of the game. So it's good at wiping boards and contesting standby decks, as well as the surprise dual lane Tokyo Revengers deck. Not going to go too in depth on it. I've made a video about it. I've posted about it on Twitter a quadrillion times. I love the deck, but I'm not going to talk about it here. You can go watch my video for that. It also scored a top 8 spot here. So, pretty cool top 8. Obviously, a lot of the decks we expected, but kind of diverse, right? That's still, I believe, six different series, right? In a top 8, which is pretty good for diversity. Second, we had the EU region, which wasn't, I guess it was what, 1, 2, 3... 4, 5 different series still, so pretty good diversity. And Hololive taking 3 of the top 8 spots in this one, but with 3 different builds. So really, in this one, there were only two duplicates. The 2 8 standby Mushoku Tensei still showing up in 4th and top 8. We had actually even 3 completely different Hololive builds from AO, where we had a Botan Marine in AO. Here in EU, we had a Kanata Marine, we had a Botan Nene, and we had a Korone Urusha. So Hololive showing that it has a bunch of different viable builds that can all do strong things. Dual lane Tokyo Revengers showing up once again. 8 choice Slime showing up once again. Danmachi showing up once again, scoring 2nd place this time, actually beating out the Mushoku Tensei decks. So yeah, diverse, which is good. I think a lot of people kind of see this meta as a bit stale between a couple of the decks at the top, but diverse top 8. Lots of different builds of Hololive. I guess it's not diverse if you consider like 3 Hololive tops, but like it's a lot of different builds. Kind of a cool balance between like the board-based decks, like the standby decks like Mushoku, and the decks like Rusha and Kanata, contrasted against like Danmachi being a board-breaking deck, Slime, a really aggressive deck, and Dual Lane TRV, kind of a deck all in its own league. So it's cool that like it's not just one strategy taking over everything. Third, we have NALA. This one's a bit less diverse, I have to admit. Only 4 different decks in the top 8. 2 Choice Standby Ruby, 2 8 Standby Mushoku, 3 Kanata Marine Hollow Lives, and Danmachi actually won it all, which is pretty funny because, you know, the other 7 decks are all like board-based, like standby or just really big early play decks. And then Danmachi is like, yep, don't care, my level 1 gets really big. Which is kind of cool to see the, you know, it's supposed to fill that niche of breaking boards and actually did it, which is cool. So less diversity here, but, you know, overall, from the BRO results, apart from the fact that there was a ton of Mushoku and a ton of Hololive, the Hololive were at least diverse in their builds. Mushoku less so, mostly 8 standby. The rest of the format seems pretty healthy. And as we get some more sets, that might change for better or worse. We'll have to see. We'll have quintuplets being legal this weekend, so hasn't had any tournaments yet. We'll have to see what that does to the meta. But yeah, BRO was pretty great. Lots of different stuff. Then, you know, that was 2 weeks ago. Last weekend, we had the first event of the Bushiroad Championship Series 2022, and that was Houston, Texas. And the top 8 for that was, you know, pretty much actually more of what we saw in BRO. So it's, you know, the top sort of tier of decks feels pretty set in stone. We'd have 3 8 Standby Mushoku Tensei, 1 Kanata Marine Hololive, 1 Watame Marine Hololive, which is kind of just an archetype of like 1k1 level 1 combo into Marine that doesn't really matter a whole ton which level 1 you play. Again, 1 Danmachi, breaking into the top 8, good against all these board-based decks. A Comeback Standby Ruby, which is slightly different from the choice standbys we saw in BRO. And once again, Dual Lane TRV showing up, proving that it is still a deck that you don't want to underestimate, you don't want to mess with. You know, there were only 3 of us in the tournament playing it, and one of them made top 8. I ended with it at a 5-2 record on the bubble, and the third one placed or got 4-3 record. So, you know, 2 of them right there on the bubble to be in top 8. One actually made it in as a 6-1. The other one, myself, I missed out on tiebreakers. So, strong deck. Definitely not one to be underestimated. And can hold its own against, you know, 8 Standby Mushoku, Kanata, Hololive, etc. Decks that are really placing highly in all of these tournaments. Apart from that, looking at the actual top decks in the format, real quick. Obviously, we have Mushoku Tensei. It's a standby deck. It makes a really big board. It has a finisher that not only acts as a finisher, but also prevents backups and has huge power lines, which is just really good at the meta right now. The deck has a rest counter, which is really good defensive option if it can't go for the kill. Can shut down a lot of other decks' finishers, and Ghislaine herself is good into rest counter because your opponent can't play backups during her battle. So overall, just a really good deck, both defensively and offensively into the format right now. Second, we have Hololive, which has been topping a lot with different builds, though the biggest one that seems to be topping the most is the Kanata Marine build. And that is, again, a deck that can threaten rest counter. So very strong defensive options. It builds a ton of resources at level 2 and goes into a very resource efficient, fairly good kill range finisher at level 3 with the Marine. Has a lot of potential to just loop climax combos and take control of the game on a like board state. Has anti-change counter, rest counter, lots of just 3k backups to protect its board. So it can be a real pain to deal with. So it's no surprise that these decks that can break board have been seeing success, like Danmachi. The Bell level 1 can reach anywhere from like 13 to 17,000 if you have a good enough hand for it. On his own, he's very often, you know, 10k on his level 1 combo. With 1 Pyonkichi, you can get that to 14k. If you have 4 Firebolts, he's going to be 11-5, 15-5 with a Pyonkichi. So this guy can just tear through these standby-based boards without a lot of issue. And the early play boards, such as Kanata, who very frequently is only going to be reaching 14 or 15,000 with a backup. So, really strong deck that is good into the meta. It's less good at dealing with the rest counter, unfortunately, though its finisher does pump a lot of soul, allowing it to side attack if necessary. And a lot of these builds were also playing the Ice level 3 that prevents backups in her own battle. So, good into the meta, really high power lines. Another deck that's presenting high power lines at level 1 and 2, not as high as Danmachi's, but still fairly high on their own, is Ruby. Both the Trial Deck level 1 combo and the Booster Jean combo are surrounded by a lot of cards, and they themselves pump power, and they're surrounded by a lot of cards that pump power, allowing the decks to pretty frequently break through level 1 and 2 standby boards. And the Ruby Rose finisher herself doesn't need to go into battle. She just sends the card facing her directly into your opponent's clock, which is going to skip counter step for these rest counters, which makes her also very well positioned into this sort of build a board, hold up defensive measures meta. So this is sort of the opposite side of Danmachi, right? Where Danmachi is really good at breaking the boards and then doesn't have good ways to play around the defensive counters. Ruby is not quite as good at breaking the boards, but has really good ways to play around the counters at level 3. So again, just a nice deck into the current meta, and that has gotten it a number of topping spots that it deserved. And lastly, the other deck that has gotten the most top 8 spots recently is the dual lane Tokyo Revengers deck, with 3 total top 8 spots across the 4 events, and some other fairly high placements in Swiss alongside that, with probably the least representation in tournament out of any of these decks. So this might have one of the highest conversion rates in the format right now, and, you know, that might partially just be due to the first couple of events. Nobody knew about it. Nobody was building against it to beat it. But this deck is, you know, if you aren't ready and you don't know what you're doing and your deck doesn't have a way to beat this deck specifically, you're in for a world of pain. This deck is unlike anything English Weiss has ever had. Japanese Weiss has only had one deck that I think is comparable, that being Love Life Superstar. And this deck, frankly, has much higher kill range than Love Live Superstar ever had. It's, if you're unfamiliar with it still, it's a combo deck where they use this dual laner Chifuyu to build anywhere from 15 to 20 stock going into level 3, and lock the opponent at level 2, and use just an absurd line of finishers to play out, you know, 6 or 7 level 3s in a single turn, and kill the opponent from like mid-low level 2. Personally, in Houston, I killed almost all of my opponents from 2-2 or 2-3. And, yeah, if you're not ready to stop this deck with rest counters or memory kick counters or something, you're going to lose to it. You have to be ready for it. If people start playing this more frequently and start seeing higher representation, you're definitely going to have to be ready for it. Because this deck will just shred through Swiss rounds. If it's uncontested. Next, the upcoming regionals, that we'll have to see if these decks continue performing, because we will have the Quintessential Quintuplets 2 legal starting today, September 2nd, for the regionals this weekend. We have Duluth, Georgia, and Taipei City, Taiwan, both taking place this weekend. And then 2 weeks after that will be the next regionals. We'll have Rosemont, Illinois, and I believe Osnabrück, Germany. They moved that one. They moved the Europe ones around. They don't even have cities listed on here. I believe it's Osnabrück. So we'll have to see how those go. Next week we'll discuss the results from at least Duluth, Georgia, since I will be there, and maybe Taipei City if I can, or if Weiss Tea Time can manage to get data from that so that we can share it. But yes, thank you guys for watching this one. Big shout out to Weiss Tea Time for compiling all of the information from the top 8s for these events. That is where I got the information for that, apart from it just being posted places. Having that all in one place is really convenient for both players and content creators. You can find me at BoatsDon'tSink on Twitter. You can check out our store at Iron City Games on Facebook or ironcitygames.tcgplayerpro.com, or you can buy singles, pre-order playsets, pre-order sealed product for any of the sets you're looking for, especially if you want to play in this BCS season with some pretty cool decks. We are behind a couple sets on getting stuff uploaded, but we will be working on that in the coming weeks. So thank you for supporting us, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.